Thanks for tuning in to Screen Test Goes to the Oscars from Ken's 5. We are breaking down every major category at this year's Academy Awards coming up in just a few days. I'm David Lynch.
And I'm Jackson Floyd. And today, David, we are breaking down Best Cinematography. This is one of my favorite awards.
Me too.
One of the more hands-on awards, literally, when you look at how films are made.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Jackson. Let's look at the nominees for Best Cinematography this year. They are The Irishman, The Lighthouse, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Joker, and 1917. So a really fun, really interesting, visually interesting set of nominees this year. But one of them I think kind of stands out to me, and I think obviously to you guys watching home as well. The Lighthouse. This one, unlike its four other nominees here, it's in black and white. It's really interesting to me because I was looking back a little bit, and from 2000 to 2009, we only had two black and white movies nominated for Best Cinematography, Good Night and Good Luck, and The Man Who Wasn't There from the Coen Brothers. This decade with The Lighthouse, there's been six. We had Roma and Cold War last year as well as Ida, Nebraska, and The Artist in 2011 or 2012. So kind of interesting. Maybe the Academy is leaning a little bit towards that visual style.
Yeah, it might be a little more in vogue than it had been in the past, and I think you see a lot of people turn to it for that reason. And there's reasons to use black and white. Okay. I think in Roma's case, for instance, and also The Artist, nostalgia plays a big factor in those movies, and so that's a reason to turn to it. It has that old Hollywood look.
Sure.
Clearly, there was no color back when movies were first made, and then even after when Technicolor wasn't introduced, it was still cheaper to make black and white films. In The Lighthouse's case here, I think there's a really strong reason why he turned to black and white.
Dave Eggers.
Eggers. First of all, just to preface this, one of my favorite films of the year.
Yeah.
I think could have been represented more across the Academy.
It is really fun to see that get a nomination because that's probably the most bizarre, demented movie nominated for anything this year.
Yeah, it's a very weird film if you haven't checked it out. But please do check it out, specifically because the black and white is a character in this film. First of all, the aspect ratio of this film is kind of cut off on the sides. It's not exactly square. I think it's more like 4:3. And what that does is it allows black on the sides of the screen there, where the film is not filling out the screen. You've got the black there. And so what that does is it allows the shadows to bleed into the black there. So you're watching these cramped, contained dining scenes between Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, and not only is that scene so claustrophobic, the film itself is claustrophobic. You know where the film begins and the screen ends in that sense. So it just kind of turns into this depth there.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And just the way he uses shadow too, it's very evocative of, I don't know, Billy Wilder, Orson Welles, these great film noir from the 40s and the 50s, even Fritz Lang with Metropolitan M. Just using shadow as a character. It's amazing, and then all that is offset with just this intense brightness of the lighthouse. Just the whiteness, the overexposed, just the blaring glare of this light, and that plays such a thematic role in this film. If you take this as a Prometheus myth, that fire there, that unobtainable fire that Robert Pattinson wants to get to, it's so overpowering and overwhelming, and I think it works in black and white. And just what they do with the cinematography in black and white, and using the shadow, and using the ability to kind of blend the screen into the film, really makes this film stand out to me.
Are you fond of me, Lobster? Well, we are really fond of this cinematography in The Lighthouse for sure. I agree with you, Jackson.
Thanks for clearing the paint there and letting me go to the basket on that one there. But.
And, it is really interesting because if you look at Cold War and Roma, again, two black and white movies last year that were both nominated for this award, to me at least, the visual style there, the black and white, it looked a little more kind of silky, a little velvety, a little smoother, kind of more romantic, which makes sense. Cold War is explicitly a romance, kind of set through the decades, and Roma is a nostalgic look through the director's memories. So it makes sense there. With The Lighthouse, it struck me as a little bit grittier, a little grimier. It makes sense what we said about the borders on the side with the blacks there just kind of creeping in, because it's a really claustrophobic movie in mood and in function and form and all that.
And just the fog that penetrates too, that blends that kind of the black and the white, and adds that dirtiness and that smokiness that you're talking about.
One of my favorite things that I've heard people say about The Lighthouse is it's the year's best romance. So it's romance of a different kind, in a way that kind of the gritty black and white visual style kind of works in that way as well. So
they were not just fond of Lobster; they were fond of each other.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool to see Jarin Blaschke's work for The Lighthouse get recognized here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a category full of powerhouses. I mean, Tarantino films constantly in this category. Scorsese films, same way. And then, of course, you got to turn your eye to Roger Deakins, who is the GOAT, the greatest living cinematographer, I would argue, and he's been recognized here before.
Finally.
Do you think
A couple of years ago with Blade Runner 2049 for sure. Yeah.
over kind of well deserved, but
Yeah.
kind of one of the things that they finally got around to it.
Right.
It could have been who could have won this dozens of times
Sure,
before that.
sure.
His cinematography work in 1917 has kind of been sweeping the awards as all of 1917 has.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what takes it home this time around?
I think so. I mean, when you look at just who's won this award over the last 10 years or so, it's there are no surprises. I mean, you've got La La Land, you've got Avatar, you've got The Revenant, you've got Hugo, you got Last Year with Roma. So if they're not really technically ambitious movies, they're like visual kind of extravaganzas, not really subtle in their visual style. But that's not a bad thing either. Some of them work a little bit more well than others, and some of them the form kind of meshes a little better with the function. But it's kind of interesting comparing it to the recipients of this award over the last 10 years, because when you look at 2000, 2009, you got movies like Slumdog Millionaire, Memoirs of a Geisha, Pan's Labyrinth. In a sense, smaller, more intimate, lesser known movies kind of win this award. So over the last 10 years, they've really gone to the extravagant technical achievement, sometimes kind of recognizing how hellacious maybe the achievement of getting the cinematography was, like especially for like The Revenant. Birdman won for this a couple of years ago. It's kind of doing the same thing, or 1917 is kind of doing the same thing that was, and making it appear like a single take. It seems like the luckiest luck of the night for Roger Deakins to take home a second Oscar.
I mean, we talked about hands-on as this award. This is such a bombastic, explosive piece of cinematography.
Yeah.
Just the effort and the workout that it feels like to put this on film or digital, as they put it out there.
Sure.
And just, you see the actors going through this, and it is a frenetic, it's getting garnering a lot of comparisons to video games, and the kind of the storyline, the nonstop kind of thing. And all of that is coming through the cinematography.
Yeah, definitely. And, and some people appreciate that a little bit more than others. It definitely works. You can't talk about 1917 without getting too far, without talking about what they do with the visuals. And, you can say that's kind of Oscar bait. You can say it's a little bit video gamey. I have my own thoughts on it. I think it works better than others at some point. But what also sticks out to me is that I think the one take style is one thing that's a little inconsistent. But some of the more traditional visuals that Deakins does here are extraordinary. I'm thinking about a specific scene at night when we're the camera's slowly going out a window and night has fallen unexpectedly, and we're going over the ruins of a bombed out town in World War I Europe. And the score kind of swells up and to kind of reach that emotional climax. The flares are flying overhead, and I'm like, this is what I want. Like, it's not too extravagant, but it's operatic in the visual style and just the aesthetic style. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think 1917 takes us home.
I think so too.
And it's just like a master at work.
Do you think it deserves it?
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Yeah.
Obviously, it does. I'm at the point where I'm a little bit worn out by the long take, the running thing, no cuts kind of feel. I hope this doesn't become an en vogue trend after Birdman. Revenant uses it to some bits and pieces there. Gravity's another film where it's like, hey, there are no cuts. It's all one big thing.
Yeah.
Cuts are good. Cuts are nice sometimes. So
And
let's not lose that.
There's also something to be said for the long take that doesn't call attention to itself.
Yeah.
Like I was reminded recently about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's a long take in there when we're going back to Brad Pitt's memories as Cliff Booth, his memories, or maybe just his hypothetical imagining of a situation, however you want to read that,
It's a fairy tale,
of when he's fighting Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And if you look at that scene, there's a lot of kind of fancy tricks that might conceal the edits like 1917 does, but that scene comes... it's manifested as a seemingly single take, and you don't think about it in the moment, and you could argue that might be a little more effective use of that technique.
I mean, but it's Deakins. It's
Exactly.
an incredible and impressive piece of work.
Yeah, he's not being denied this year.
That being said, every single one of these nominees, save for maybe Joker, I thought were just impressive pieces of cinematography.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you're in the world immediately. The
Definitely.
color that comes through. Just my favorite parts of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are just the driving scenes. As the radio scans around and plays around, you hear the 60s advertising.
You're really transported there.
It's an amazing piece of work as well. So
And some other movies that were could have been more deserving to see in here. Like I'm thinking about stuff like Last Black Man in San Francisco, one of the most gorgeously shot movies of the year,
my
and that
gosh,
visual
it's an amazing
style. I think when you think about what Midsommar did as far as hypnotizing its audience over its pretty lengthy runtime. I think the cinematography does a long way towards doing that. I love the cinematography in that movie. Maybe even Uncut Gems. It's kind of flashy and extravagant to a different level. Maybe the film editing has a little bit more to say about that there, but a lot of deserving movies this year for it.
Yeah, you went through all of those without mentioning Parasite.
Parasite, so, yeah, absolutely.
They're going to win a few other awards here.
Sure.
We think, so I'm not outraged here.
Yeah.
I think this is a great group of nominees. Yeah, I'm saving my outrage.
Yeah, so you think Deakins will win it? I think Deakins will win it. I'm not going to be too mad about it. He's, like you say, he's one of our greatest living cinematographers. He's going to continue going down in history even after he's done. Yeah. It's going to be cool saying he's a multi-Oscar award winner.
Exactly. So, a guy who completely deserves to be a multi-Oscar
absolutely.
winner as well. That's Best Cinematography. Be sure to hit that subscribe button there in the bottom right-hand corner. For all of our content here, we've got a playlist as well with all of the Screen Test Goes to Oscars videos. And be sure to check out kins5.com for plenty more content.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm David Lynch.
And I'm Jackson Floyd.